Peace, light, and love. It's your girl, Conscious Queen, your hood astrologer. And yeah, I want to get into this Leo new moon energy. Okay, we are still in the new moon energy. And you know, this energy started out as a void of course moon in Cancer. So we were completing a lunar cycle in Cancer, and now we're into Leo. So technically the full moon will be in Aquarius. It will not be in Capricorn. We just had a Capricorn full moon. If you noticed, like the past 2 or 3 new moons were void of course. The Gemini new moon was a void of course moon as well, because it was entering into Cancer. It was like a Gemini Cancer cusp moon. So yeah, I didn't do the full moon report for Capricorn. I did write it out. I was almost done with all my zodiac signs, but I didn't get a chance to complete it. So here I am for this Cancer new moon energy. And like I said, technically it's not a Cancer new moon. It is a Leo new moon. All right. So we're gonna see this Leo energy again. Or are we? No, because we're gonna have a full moon in Capricorn in August. So I think we will have another Leo new moon in August. So I'm gonna go back to my Astro Matrix app and I'm gonna check that out. But one moment. All right. So of course I'm going to start with Aries. I might need to close my door. Okay. So of course we're going to start with Aries. And for Aries, this new moon in Cancer in the void of course energy was in your 4th house. The Leo new moon enters the 8th house.
I'm sorry. I meant the Leo new moon is in your 5th house, Aries. All right. So the sun will enter your 5th house, and this new moon started out in your 5th house, which is the house of your children, pregnancy, sex. The 5th house is also the house of entertainers and entertainment. All right, so that was my bad. I did not mean to say the 8th house.
Okay. A little more privacy and quiet. All right. So the moon entering the 5th house is bringing things to light when it comes to children. Okay, as you can see, I'm going through the same thing myself, with me being you know, a mother of multiples, you know, having
I am also a
tend to the
Aries
kids,
moon and
you know.
Venus and Mercury, so I can definitely relate
Yeah.
to the 5th house being
The 5th
in a
house
square
also
to the 1st house.
of joy, romance, and sex. So yeah, there's a square to your 1st house, so it could be with your child, or you know, your sex life, or something like that. The 5th house is also the house of entertainers, okay, and like actors, actresses, those in the broad media. So there's also something here about pregnancy as well. So with the square to your 5th house, the square from your 5th house to your 1st house, there could be a conflict of interest with you and your children, or you and, you know, your sex life, you and a pregnancy, so to say. All right. There could also be something that comes up surrounding your childhood, right? So that is what I have for Aries. And for Taurus, this new moon was wrapping up the energy in your 3rd house. and it's entering your 4th house. So the void of course new moon in your 3rd house is the house of travel, communication, your community, your friends. All right. With the void of course moon in your 3rd house, you could be wrapping some things up as far as communicating or the way you travel. All right. Your siblings as well. All right. The 3rd house is a busy house. Okay. And I noticed that as we enter this void, of course, and I can relate because my North Node in Taurus is in my 1st house. So I found myself talking like so much. You know, I just been talking. And, you know, I was like, you know what? I've been more active on social media because I don't do social media that much. I kind of took like a break, and then I haven't been having the time. Been having an issue trying to juggle my social media pages and putting myself out there, you know, as far as my channel and trying to grow my audience, and just trying to balance work, home, the kids, you know, and then with me expecting myself, you know, I be tired, okay? And a lot of times I'm like, ugh, I just don't feel like it. So with me having my Taurus North Node in my 1st house, I can definitely relate. So yeah, the 3rd house is also gossip. Okay, so there could be a lot of gossiping going on, whether it's about you or you're the one gossiping. A lot of just chatter and talking. Okay, but the 3rd house is also the house of siblings. So there could be something that come up about that. As well as, yeah, just like social media, writing, talking with friends, you know, just really sociable with everybody. But with this new moon entering into your 4th house, it's shining a light on your home, of course. Your mother could be highlighted as well. All right, the moon and the sun in your 4th house is square to your 12th house. All right, so the 12th house, with the sun and moon in your 4th house and a square to your 12th house, your 12th house is associated with your prayer life. All right, your 12th house is associated with a need to rest. The 12th house is also the house of like prisons and hospitals. So, you know, a need to balance your home and spiritual life. All right, the 12th house is also a house of like bedroom pleasures and sex and things like that, kind of behind the scene where you're resting. I am a 12th house sun, so you know, there could be a need to rest, and like I said, a 12th house is a house that naturally trines to the 8th house, which is the house of sex and secrets. So you know, some astrologers say that the 12th house is bed pleasures. So it's pretty much the same thing, you know, sex, but it's more so of a romantic kind, like a getaway or a hotel or something like that, like a hideout, but you hiding out, you know, doing, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, so yeah. Now you also have Chiron in Aries, and you have Aries in your 12th house. So me going through this energy where I have a 12th house stellium, like, yeah, I'm really like, I could be behind the scenes, I could talk a lot of shit, like cursing somebody out, you know what I mean? Like, and I mean, Aries in the 12th house for some Taurians, you know, you ain't always gotta be like cursing somebody out or fighting, or like having like rough sex or going through some form of abuse, like, you know what I'm saying, or you doing your thug thizzle, like, the 12th house Aries is not always that. The 12th house Aries is also like a boss energy, an energy of entrepreneurship. And it's also an energy of being alone as well, because Aries is one, okay? Aries represents one. Aries is also an energy of the baby, okay? So, with the 12th house Aries, you know, you could have a baby in the home, or maybe you, because 12th house is associated with loss, so there could be a loss of a baby, or, you know, you could be trying to prepare your home for a baby, or it could be some kind of conflict within your home that interferes with your sex life or your prayer life or your spiritual life, okay? So, let's see, what else did I write down here? So, yeah. Just a need to balance your spiritual life and pray. There definitely could be some kind of conflict with your home or your mother, all right? Because the 4th house is connected to your roots, your family, okay? And like I said, your mother. So it's like a ancestral thing. Can you do it? Get your charger, baby, and close my door back behind you when you go out. But, yeah, so that's what I have for you, Taurus. All right. And for Gemini, this void of course new moon started out in your 2nd house, and the Leo new moon entered your 3rd house. So the Cancer new moon in the 2nd house was in a square to your 11th house. All right. What? Can you get some what? Ask Miss Jessica, ask Jen to fix y'all some cereal. It's some milk in there. Okay, so yeah, the need to balance home and, you know, your spiritual life. And I'm really trying to get these spiritual readings out at a good time, to where, you know, you can kind of get a heads up. But I typically normally do my reports when I'm in the energy of the new or the full moon. Okay, but the new moon energy is going to reveal to you a lot of energy for the full moon. Yeah, if I said that right. The new moon energy will pretty much give you a precursor of the full moon energy, because it's going to oppose each other, okay? So once the moon and the sun conjunct, the moon is going to separate from the sun and continue to go around the zodiac, and it's going to oppose the sun, which is going to bring something to fruition or culmination for you, okay? So, a lot of 3rd house energy, because Gemini, you already had Mercury and Leo in your 3rd house, and you also have Venus in your 3rd house, and you have Black Moon Lilith in your 3rd house. So you have a lot of energy, Gemini, in your 3rd house, okay? And you're naturally a mercurial sign. So a really busy time for you, a lot of socializing, a lot of social media, a lot of networking, okay? You know, you could be, you know, socializing with neighbors, putting yourself out there in the community, you know, just getting yourself out there. The sun and moon in your 3rd house is in a square to Taurus energy in your 12th house. So the Taurus energy in your 12th house, Taurus in the 12th house, is associated with your spiritual beliefs, your spirituality, as well as a marriage, because 12th house Taurus is like a marriage, okay? The 12th house is associated with loss as well, though, okay? So with you having a a 3rd house, I forgot where I was going with this. But the 12th house with Taurus is also a house of hidden enemies. The 12th house is also a house of hospitalization and prisons as well. And Taurus is the energy of food, okay? So there could very well, I know for a fact, well, for example, my son is a Gemini, and he went to the hospital for, I'm assuming, food poisoning. He was at his uncle's house, and he got really sick. His dad called me and said, look, I gotta take him to the hospital. His dad dropped him off at his brother's house while he was at work. Apparently he ate some bad food that sent him to the hospital. So you know, I wrote this energy out ahead of time too, so that's why I say I want to start getting this energy out early, because I had already knew that some people were going to be going to the hospital, okay? And with Taurus in the 12th house, this is definitely food, okay? Could be hospital food, you know what I mean? Like of another one example, I had my cousin, her daughter just had her baby, and she's a Taurus. So she was in the hospital, you know. I think the hospital kind of was slacking on their food, you know what I mean? Because, you know, she called mom like, hey, can you bring me something to eat? And so we was talking, and I was like, you know, the hospital that I plan on having my baby at, like, we gonna eat. They gonna feed us, that's for sure. Like, we get this stork meal, and I love the stork meal because it's like whoever was there with you when you delivered your baby, they get like a special meal, you know, where you get like an entree, you get your dessert, you pick out your soda, you know, so they're gonna feed you pretty good. Also prison food as well, because the 12th house is prison. So something could come up about prison food and hospital food, or it could just be food in general, okay? Food might be your secret enemy, your silent enemy, because the 12th house is associated with hidden enemies, okay? Or a hidden enemy use food against you, you know. But like I said, the 12th house is associated with the loss. So with Taurus in the 12th house, there could be some things that you lost, you know, associated with the second house. You know, clothes, money, shoes. You know, the second house could be a lot of things. Jewelry, okay? You know, the 12th house is associated with a loss of security, a loss of, you know, money, okay? So, yeah, that third house is square to that 12th house. Communicating, travel, siblings, your friends. Everybody's not your friend. You know, everybody don't have your best interests out for you. Because the third house is also the house of, like, gossip and things like that, okay? So, there could be issues with siblings as well, all right? There could also be a need to get more rest and more sleep, okay? But the 12th house is also your prayer life. And with this square, sorry, that's me. With this square from the 12th house to your third house, I feel like God protects from your hidden enemies. I feel like this is balancing your prayer life against what people have to say about you. But the 12th house, like I said, is also hidden enemies, you know, because with all this energy of Leo in your third house, you know, with you being, you know, because the third house Leo is somebody that's romantic, somebody that stands out, somebody that loves to play, you know, but it's also somebody that shines bright, that stands out, okay? Because the Leo energy is the ruler of the sun. So with this third house, Gemini, you know, you could really stand out. You really shine bright, and you have hidden enemies because of that, all right? So that is the energy of this 12th house square to the third house, Gemini. All right, moving on to Cancer. So for Cancer, this void, of course, new moon, of course, started in your first house. As the moon and sun enters your second house, and since it's your birthday month, Cancer, you may have received some really nice gifts or money, okay, because the second house, which is Leo, all right, things that bring you joy and pleasure. The second house is also associated with your fifth house, so you could have received nice gifts from your children, okay, as well, or it's about getting money for your children, or something could come up for you when it comes to what your children need as far as second house things like clothes, shoes. You might want to buy your kids a nice chain or something, or a nice pair of expensive shoes. That's the energy of the second house in connection to the fifth house. So the void of course moon in your first house was in a square to your 10th house. So definitely your career, your reputation, also your boss as well. Okay, so with your first house in the square to your Aries 10th house, that could definitely bring a conflict of interest with the boss, okay, or an authority figure, definitely. All right, whether it's jealousy or your work ethic or whatever it is. Sorry, I keep messing with this. The 12th house definitely, your 10th house definitely is your reputation, your status. Okay, so with that square to your first house, it's like that's your focus, your career, how you look to the public, the image that you put out to the world. Your parent is their 10th house as well, so there could be a conflict with you and a parent, or you could be the parent, because the 10th house is the house of like fathers, the parent. So it could be your legacy or your parent, So yeah, with the new moon entering into the second house, there's definitely some goals here when it comes down to your money or second house things that you need to acquire. Like I said, it definitely could be connected to your fifth house, which is your children or pregnancy, or like a child, or just sex, romance. The fifth house is also the house of entertainment. So it's like, what am I gonna wear? I'm gonna wear this nice dress. I'm gonna buy me a nice dress so that, I can look good when I, go to the casino or something, or go to this show, So yeah, that's that second house and connected to the fifth house. So the moon and the sun in your second house is in a square to your 11th house of friends. So there's a conflict with friends and money. All right. With the fifth house Scorpio, because you have Scorpio for the fifth house, Cancer, there could be some kind of trauma surrounding a child. Or, the 8th house associated with your fifth house is attachments. It's attachments. It is, because Scorpio is the energy of marriage and the things that come attached with the marriage. So I can see, your spouse could have done some nice things or bought you a really nice gift, or could be like getting you some second house things, clothes and shoes, or a nice necklace, or some jewelry or a ring or something, just something, second house. All right. But with Scorpio being in the fifth house, like I say, the Scorpio energy in the fifth house is connected to jealousy, is connected to power and money and control, okay? Because Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. All right. And which, by the way, you do have Pluto retrograding back into your 7th house. So, yeah, definitely your marriage and your partnership is highlighted for you as well in the mix with this energy. But the 5th house, Scorpio, is also associated with the occult and dark magic, okay? There could be investigations around children as well with the Scorpio 5th house for Cancer. You know, but like I say, jealousy is associated with Scorpio. Jealousy and control, you know, manipulation, things of that nature. So, yeah. So that's what I have for you, Cancer. The 2nd house in a square to your 5th house. Yeah, the 2nd house is in a square to your 5th house and your 11th house. So your money, your joy, your friends, you know, it's all a conflict for you. All right. Your children, the things that make you happy. The 5th house is also associated with gambling. All right. So, yeah. And with the sun and moon initiating in your 2nd house, and you're going to have a full moon in your 8th house, it's going to bring up codependency. It's going to bring up joint finances. It's going to bring up partnership when it comes to money. All right. So you could lean a lot on your partner, or your partner could lean a lot on you financially. And that's okay. That's what partnerships is for, right? So that's what I have for you, Cancer. And for Leo, sorry, got a little wet right there in my nose. But anyway, sinuses. So Leo, this Cancer new moon started off as a void of course in your 12th house. Now, the void of course moon in your 12th house is associated with hospitals and prisons. It's also your prayer. All right. Like I said, the 12th house is also hidden enemies. So let's see. Now, the void of course moon in the 12th house is also a house of rest and relaxation. So for Leos, this void of course new moon in Cancer might have brought up, you know, the need for a retreat or the need to rest. The void of course new moon in the 12th house is also your mental health. Okay, so something about that could come up for you. All right. But the Leo new moon starts in your 1st house, and Leo, you already have a lot of energy in your 1st house with Mercury and Venus and Black Moon Lilith. Okay, so all of this energy has been a square to your 10th house. So you could have issues with a boss or with your career. There could also be something about your reputation that comes up. All right, let me I have to put my phone back in charge. Let me move this down here because this top of this table is. But yeah. So basically, the image that you put out to the world, okay, your reputation, your family, you could have an issue with your family, your legacy. All right. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, it's a focus of career and your status and reputation for you right now. And like I say, the image that you put out there to the world, because the 10th house is the world, okay? It's your career. It's your status, okay? So with the Mercury, Venus, and Black Moon Lilith in your first house, you know, you can have people talking about you. Black Moon in your first house, you know, you could be. The Black Moon Lilith, it is a darker energy. It's secretive. It's kind of hidden. It's kind of like an underground kind of energy. All right. Venus in your first house is associated with money. It's also associated with sweets, you know. My children's dad is of Leo first house, and he brought like this delicious banana pudding over. So with Venus and Leo in the first house, you know, you could be spending a lot of money with people buying their sweets, you know. Or you could have women gifting you, you know. You could connect a lot with women at this time. You know, sisterhood is really important with Venus in your first house. All right. And also with Venus in your first house, you could be feeling like you could be treating yourself more, you know, looking good, looking better, you know. But yeah, that's what I have for you, Leo. And now this square to your 10th house is also square to your 4th house as well. So all this energy in your first house and square to your 4th house, definitely some conflict within your home, with your mother, with your family. Okay, but there's definitely some conflict in the home at this time. All right. So yeah, that's what I have for you, Leo. Virgo. So Virgo, this Cancer new moon void, of course, started off in your 11th house, as the moon and sun in Leo enters your 12th house. So this void, of course, new moon in Cancer in your 11th house, is highlighting something with your friends. All right. The sun and moon in Leo in the 12th house could highlight hospitals and prisons, as well as hidden enemies. Okay. The 12th house is also your spirituality, your prayer life, all right, the need to rest and relax as well. So the sun and moon in the 12th house is associated with the 5th house, which is Capricorn. All right. So yeah, the sun and moon in the 12th house is associated with your 5th house, Capricorn. So yeah, something with your children here. All right. Something is highlighting in your 12th house, you know, your hidden enemies. This is your spiritual life as well, your prayer life. All right. But with the 12th house in connection to your 5th house, you know, you could definitely be doing some things with a child or your children. All right. The 12th house in connection to the 5th house could also be dealing with a pregnancy as well. The 12th house in connection to the 5th house is sex, of course. I did mention that for another sign in the beginning of my video. Or there could be like children in the hospital or prison, which I mentioned that in Gemini for my child as well. But yeah, the 5th house is also associated with joy, pregnancy, and entertainers. So with this 12th house in association with the 5th house, you could be resting, like watching movies, you know, keeping up with trending news when it comes to entertainers, you know. But your sun and moon in the 12th house is in a square to your 9th house. So this is spirituality. This is also travel, okay? The 9th house is also legal issues. Okay. Well, the 12th house and 9th house is a very spiritual house. It's also seeing things from a higher perspective. All right. And higher philosophies about things, certain things, whatever the topic could be. There could be some travel involved for some Virgos. All right. There could be a conflict with traveling because you might have to, like if you work in a hospital or in a prison, there could be a need to rest from traveling, but like I was saying, that could restrict you from traveling as well. Like if you work in a prison or a hospital. All right. There could also be some hidden enemies in connection to spiritual practices and beliefs. Okay. So, with the 9th house square the 12th house, the 12th house is God. It's the house of prayer. And the 9th house is the house of travel. It's the house of your beliefs and your spiritual practices. So, there's an energy here of conflict when it comes to God and spiritual practices and spiritual law. All right. The 12th house is also the house of hidden enemies, like I said. It could be hidden enemies while traveling, you know. With this Leo in the 12th house in connection to your 9th house of travel, you know, 12th house connected to the 5th house. You could be traveling with children, all right? Could be traveling with children. The 12th house Leo is also like pampering yourself, right? Like you do hair, if you do nails, if you sing, or like entertainment, things like that that goes on behind the scenes. All right. So yeah, that could be your energy at this time. But what did I say that square was again? The 12th house square to the 9th house and the 3rd house. So yeah, traveling is pretty much the energy for you, Virgo. Travel, spirituality, foreign people, coming in connection with foreign people, foreign foods, different ethnicities, things of that sort with the 9th house. All right, and Libra. All right, so for Libra, the void of course new moon in Cancer started off in your 10th house, which is the world. It's also the house of your parent, okay? The new moon in the 10th house was in a square to your 7th house, all right? So your reputation, your image to the world is in a conflict with your marriage, all right? You could have a issue with a boss, okay? Or you could have like a parent that's just really overprotective, like, no, back away. She's not gonna have a boyfriend, you know, like. So it could be a connection with parents and marriage. Maybe your parent doesn't like your spouse, or maybe your spouse doesn't like your parent. It could go either way, or there could be something in regards to your reputation or what the information is put out to the world that conflicts or creates a conflict within your marriage. All right. So yeah, there is a something about a parent in your marriage here, in your partnership. The sun and moon is entering the 11th house, which will square to your 8th house. All right. Now this 11th house square to 8th house It definitely feels like an entanglement. All right. Libra, you got Venus, Mercury, and Black Moon Lilith in the 11th house. So you're not, I don't know. I feel like with the 11th house square to the 8th house of Taurus, the 8th house is like, could be like jealousy. It could be sex, something traumatic. It could be other people's money as well. Okay, with the 11th house square to 8th house. But I feel like with the 11th house square to 8th house, you know, there's definitely some secrets here when it comes down to friends. Your friends could, it could be something about sex, you know, and there's a conflict with your friends, okay? There could be an entanglement. This is the energy of third party with the 11th house and with the 11th house square. What was the 11th house square to the 8th house? Yeah, the 11th house is square to the 8th house. Also, friends' death, okay? The 11th house and the square to the 8th house. There could be some secrets. There could also be trauma in connection with friends, all right? Taurus in the 8th house is also connected to food or marriage as well. All right. The 8th house Taurus could be jealousy, but I definitely feel the energy of third parties here. Okay, somebody else's spouse. Sorry, that's their lunch bus coming around. But yeah, this energy feels a little messy. All right, I'm not gonna lie. It feels like an entanglement. It feels like there could be a death involved when it comes to friends. Good morning. You woke up when you heard the lunch bus. That's what it looked like. But your sisters, them, they wanted some cereal. See if they eat some cereal. All right. Huh? Nowhere. Record my video. Thank you. My daughter said, "Where you back to go looking all pretty?" I'm like, girl, nowhere. Recording this video. This is, I got a date with YouTube, okay? But yeah, this 11th house square to the 8th house. There's definitely some death involved. Could be something about an inheritance as well. The 8th house is also the occult. Okay, the 8th house is also a crisis. Okay, so yeah, the 8th house is also a house of crisis. All right, so I don't know, it just feels dark. You know, you could be after other people's money or possessions, you know, or you could be kind of like in the mix with someone else's marriage. But I definitely feel like this is a death with a friend. Or like sex with a friend. All right. Or it could be like some kind of fears or trauma in connection to a friend. All right. So also with this 11th house and a square to the 8th house, your sexual health. Okay, they might be your friend, but wear a condom. Also, there could be an issue of like sexual health that comes up, yeah, in connection to a friend. All right. You might want to know someone's sexual status before moving on to the next level with a friend. All right. There might be secrets about a marriage with a friend. Like this 11th house square to this 8th house, just be careful because you don't want to connect to a friend that could wish harm on you or want to harm you. Because the 8th house is also a manipulative house, a house of jealousy and control as well. Pluto is the ruler of the 8th house. And you actually have Pluto in your 5th house, Libra. So this is definitely in connection to your children. It's also in connection to sex. All right. So, no. You know, there could be some sex and children involved in or entangled in somebody else's marriage. All right. So that's what I have for you, Libra. All right, and I'm back. So the 8th house is, like I say, the house is of other people's money. Okay, there's a conflict here with sex. Okay, the 5th house is the house of entertainment and entertainers as well. Okay, so the 8th house is also the house of like investigations. Like people could be like investigating you, you know, watching you. I mean, Leo in the 8th house is associated with your 5th house, right? Which is other people's money when it comes down to what, like clothes or other second house things. Okay, your money. I really just want to say be careful with this energy because the 8th house in a square to your 5th house and the 11th house could be some secrets about sex. All right. I mean, the 8th house and the 5th house are both houses of sex, but there could be something about children that could come up for you as well. Your reproductive health could be an issue when it comes to children with the 8th house square to the 5th house. Okay, so some Capricorns may want to have a baby, but your health is really, or your reproductive health is really vital at this time. Like it could probably kill you if you have a baby or get pregnant, or it could have something to do with like somebody else's spouse and or a child with somebody else's spouse, or the 8th house is also like fears and crisis and trauma. Okay, now with the 8th house Leo, this is the energy of drama behind the scenes. Okay, because secrets is the 8th house, and with Leo in the 8th house, this is drama. Okay, so you could find drama entertaining, or you could create some drama for entertainment. All right, but you know, your friends could be in on it. Okay, because your 11th house is in a square to the 8th house. But for overall, especially with this full moon going to be in your 2nd house, this definitely have to do with 2nd house things such as clothes, shoes, money, things that you purchase for your children, or money for your children. Okay, joint finances and things like that. Okay. With the 8th house in the square to Taurus in the 5th house, there's a need for 2nd house things for your children, such as clothes and shoes. School is getting ready to start back. So the 8th house is receiving donations from other people, or other people's money, okay? Or there could be like some kind of inheritance here when it comes down to children, okay? Yeah, I feel like this is an energy of like an inheritance. The 8th house is the house of like disease as well, okay? So be mindful of your sexual health. At this time, some Capricorns could be seeing an OB. All right, be looking into their sexual health and their reproductive health. You might be going for an annual checkup, you know. But I feel like here, this is entertainment in connection with your spouse, or children that you share with your spouse, or yeah, like I said, some kind of joint finances, or an inheritance. It's like your children need things, you know what I mean? But there's fear here, you know. There's some fears. There's a crisis here. Okay, could even be a death involved with the 8th house here. Okay, but definitely, like I said, somebody else's spouse, an entanglement. Okay. You got to look in your room. Look on your top bunk.
By the way, I was gonna run Mars some bath water, but she decided to leave to herself and get in the shower with my name.
Well, wash her up. Make sure she wash up. But yeah, joint finances here is affecting your children and your connection with your friends, or you could have children with somebody else's spouse and your friends. I mean, like, I don't know, it's so third party-ish, because you have the 8th house and then you have your 5th house opposite your 11th house. With this moon, the sun and the moon is going to be in your 8th house. Okay, so secrets could be revealed. Sexual secrets could be revealed. Something about your reproductive health could come up for you, or something about your sex life. Like, it's something here in the 8th house with the sun there is going to illuminate. All right, and it's in a conflict with your 5th house, which is your children. Like I say, with the square to the 5th house, you know, there could be a need. Like, some people could have sex for entertainment, you know, or have sex for money, okay, or you know, this is also a house of drama, like entertainment with the 5th house square to 8th house, like something you're doing for fun, you know, creating this conflict or this drama. It's just all for entertainment, all for fun and games and shits and giggles, you know. Or it's all a part of the acting program with the 5th house, okay? So, but I feel like there's definitely a need, like your children is in need of some things with the 2nd house, okay? Could be like food for your children as well with the Taurus in the 5th house, all right? But yeah, a death may affect money for children or an inheritance for children, okay? With the sun and moon in the 8th house, this is a house of trauma, okay, or a crisis. So there could be a crisis or a traumatic event that causes stress or tension when it comes to your sex, your joy, and your children, or when it comes to being an entertainer, okay? Like, Yeah, there could be some kind of crisis that come up. All right. So definitely be mindful, Capricorn, at this time with this energy. The 8th house is also a house of obsession and jealousy and manipulation, as well as like I said, I already said, other people's money and their possessions. So I feel like with the full moon being in your 2nd house, though, in the 8th house, right now the sun and the moon and Leo in your 8th house, I feel like the biggest energy is going to be like codependency in your money and other people, or you relying on other people for money, or other people's money, like maybe you need a loan, or other people's financial information as well. Okay, so that's what I have for Capricorn. All right, and Aquarius, this new moon in Leo started off in your 7th house, and it's in a square to your 4th house and your 10th house axis. Okay, so your home and career is affected, but there is tension, stress, or conflict within a marriage. Okay, you have the sun. The sun is going to enter your 7th house. The moon is in your 7th house. Okay, so with the moon in your 7th house square to your 4th house, Taurus, there could be a conflict within your marriage and your home. Like maybe you need food for your home, or maybe other 2nd house things in your home, furniture, clothes, shoes, like just things in general. And the 2nd house could be a variety of things. Okay, the 4th house is also connected to your mother and your mother, and I say your father as well, because the 4th house is opposite your 10th house, so it's definitely the parent. Okay, your mother. All right. Your status and your image to the world, as well as your reputation, could come into conflict with your spouse. The 10th house is also your boss, so maybe your spouse wants you to take some time off of work, spend more time at home, or there's a connection with your boss that affects your marriage and your home life. Okay, it could be doing too much, could be inappropriate. All right, or maybe it's your career that's affecting you spending more time at home. Okay, or maybe there's a conflict with your marriage that interferes with your home life. Okay, y'all clothes in there on the top bunk in Jen room, or yeah, look on top bunk. A parent could also be an issue in a marriage as well, such as a father, or it could be your mother. It's a conflict with your spouse. The same energy I got from Scorpio. Okay, but there is a focus here on marriage and partnership right now, with the sun and the moon being in your 7th house. So the full moon is going to eliminate your 1st house. Okay, how the role that you play in your marriage that causes the square. Okay, so that's what I have for Aquarius. All right, now Pisces. The new moon in Leo started off in your 6th house, which is in the square to your 3rd house and your 9th house. Okay, so this is your health. All right, now the 3rd house is the house of communication. It's the house of your siblings as well. So this 3rd house, the 3rd house is also the house of travel. So there could be a conflict of interest with communicating when it comes down to your health and work, okay? The 9th house is the longer distance travel. The 3rd house is the shorter distance travel. The 3rd house is also like social media. Like I said, your siblings, your neighbors, your community, your friends. Like, you got a lot going on with this 3rd house, but it's in a square to your 6th house. Like, what are you doing every day? How are you taking care of your body? Your health, your routine, or work, okay? Your 3rd house is in the square to your 6th house, okay? The 6th house is also the house of open enemies. It's also the house of health, okay? So definitely be mindful of how you take care of your body, all right? The 3rd house is also the house of gossip, all right? The 3rd house is gossip. So you could be the one gossiping and talking about people, or you could be the topic of conversation, all right? You could be the one that people are talking about and gossiping about. You could be the conflict. And it could have something to do with people at work. It could be something about your health or how you take care of yourself in your routine, okay? Because the 6th house is open enemies. So that could come up for you, especially amongst your community, amongst your friends, amongst your siblings, okay? There's an energy here of open enemies. There's an energy here of gossip. There's an energy here of your work and your health, okay? So your health could definitely be affected by traveling, okay? And with this 9th house opposite to the 3rd house, you know, it's seeing things from a higher perspective. So the 9th house is a very judgmental house. It's, you know, seeing things from a broader point of view, or seeing the principle of the matter, okay? So the 9th house in the square to the 6th house is also like your spirituality, your spiritual beliefs, and how that affects your health. How does that affect you at work, okay? If there's like for example, there could be like a discrimination lawsuit because you're like, oh, well, I'm Muslim and I have to pray at this time every day and my boss got a problem with it. Like, that could be a conflict of interest for you at work, okay? Or if you're going to college, or if you're taking classes, you know, even if it's to better your job or to get a higher paying job. It's like, you know what, this job sucks, they're not paying me enough, I'm gonna go back to school, I'm gonna do something else, because this job ain't shit no way. You know what I mean? So it's like, or it's like, you know what, fuck this job, I can give me another one, it's something else better out there anyway. Like, that is the higher perspective, or the higher principle mindset when it comes down to certain jobs, okay? So now your 6th house, Pisces, is connected to your 5th house, okay? Because you got the sun and the moon entering your 6th house, and it is in a connection to your 5th house. So it could have something to do with children. It could have something to do with a pregnancy. You know, your health could be affected if you're pregnant, or if you work and you're pregnant. You know, like some people could be taking FMLA or maternity leave, or, you know, going through the legal process of taking off work as well, because the 5th house rules your 6th house, Pisces. So definitely children here, okay? And your health and your routine, okay, have something to do with children, or pregnancy, or sex, you know. That's 5th house is associated with sex. So yeah, so that's what I have, and that is the all 12 signs. That is the zodiac. All right, so thank you for checking me out. I appreciate everyone that stops by to check out my video, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for the next time that I upload a video. Love and light. All right, and for Sag, so for Sag, now close my door. So for Sag, this sun in Cancer new moon, which was what, of course, started off in your 8th house. Okay, which is squaring to Aries in the 5th house. So this is a conflict with joint finances, okay? Other people's money. All right. There's an energy of codependency here, like, or, you know, something that you share with your partner or someone else's partner. But there's a square to your 5th house. And Aries in the 5th house, Aries in the 5th house could very well be a son, a child, a baby, okay? Aries in the 5th house could be very aggressive too, as well. But yeah, with that sun, moon, and Cancer in the 8th house, it could be like a vehicle that you share with someone, or a home that you share with your spouse or somebody's spouse. But I mean, the 8th house is the house of sex, okay? So with that square to 5th house, like, some people could be avoiding pregnancy or could be trying to get pregnant or wanting to get pregnant. All right. But the new moon in Leo entered into your 9th house and is square to your 6th house. All right. Which is the house of health and open enemies. And this is the house of work as well. So, the 9th house in a square to the 6th house. The 9th house is traveling, so you could be traveling for work. Travel could affect your health, okay? The first thing that came to mind with the new moon in the 9th house in a square to your 6th house, and the 12th house, definitely traveling could affect your health or work. But there's also an energy here of a need to rest, a need to balance work and rest as well, and to take care of your health. With the 9th house square to the 6th house and the 12th house, your 9th house is associated with your 5th house. So seeing a higher perspective when it comes down to a child or children. The 9th house associated with the 5th house is also, because the 5th house is the house of entertainers. So there could be some traveling involved. Like, if you're an entertainer, you could be traveling for like shows or appearances, or things of that nature. Or you could be traveling with children, or you could be traveling for sex, you know. Like, the 5th house is also associated with like games and gambling, okay? So, you could be traveling for entertainment, you know. You could be traveling for entertainment, to have fun, to go gamble, to go be with your friends, play, you know, things of that nature. But the ninth house connected to the fifth house is also traveling for, you know, like I said, entertainment. This is actors, actresses, you know, tryouts, you know. Sports is also associated with the fifth house. So you could be, like, some kids could be traveling with a basketball camp, or, you know, some kids could be traveling for college, you know, or you could be traveling to go see a child that's away at college, so to say. So, but with the square to your sixth house, this is work, your routine, how you take care of yourself and your body, okay? So there could be a focus on health for you. Like, you could really be needing to focus on your health and your routine, and what do you do to maintain your body and your health, all right? The ninth house square to the sixth house is also a spiritual test here when it comes to your enemies, both seen and unseen, with the sixth house being opposite to the 12th house, because the 12th house is hidden enemies, the sixth house is open enemies. So perhaps, you know, perhaps Sag, you're the open enemy, okay? Or, you know, you deal with open enemies at work, you know. And you could also have hidden enemies that come to light. Like, this is an energy of enemies with the 6th and the 12th house. But like I said, the 6th house is work, you know. So that, I feel like that'll be the main energy. You know, the house of enemies is not for everybody, but it's definitely something going on with work, okay? The need to work. So with the ninth house here, there could be some legal things involved with the job, okay? Like, if you're filing a claim against a job, or you got a loan or something like that, you know, they could be contacting your job about the loan. Like, it's something here, like maybe you go to school every day, or you want to take online courses, or you know, you could be a teacher as well, okay? You know, preparing to go back to work, because it is about that time. So the 12th house is also the house of prisons, psych wards, and hospitals. So there may be something going on with your mental health as well, okay? With that 9th house square to 12th house, it's like, it's time to come out of rest and relaxation, time to come out of hiding, all right? And put yourself out there, you know, get to work. The 9th house square to the 6th house also brings up a test of faith against your open enemies, okay? I said lawsuits. You could have a lawsuit against your job, or legal paperwork, or there could be some kind of contract when it comes down to your job that you're trying to fulfill, all right? The 5th house is also associated with boys and sons and masculine energy. So I feel like, you know, also aggression, you know. So with your 9th house in association with your Aries 5th house, there could be, y'all supposed to take a bath. There could be something here that comes up with your children or your sons, or even a baby, because 5th house is a baby, you know. So there could be a conflict of interest between your children and work, or pregnancy and your health, so to say, you know, something like that. All right, so that's what I have for Sag. All right, and Capricorn. So Capricorn, this void of course new moon started out in your 7th house, okay? So this is the house of your partnerships, your relationships, okay, your marriage. Which was in a square to your 4th house, all right? So there has been a conflict with your partner in your home, okay? But the moon has moved on into Leo in your 8th house, which is in a square to your 5th house in your 11th house, okay? So this is the house of sex and your friends, okay? Now, with the square from the 8th house, this is some kind of entanglement. There could be somebody else's spouse that's involved, okay? The 8th house is also the house of death. The 8th house is also like other people's money, okay? The 8th house is also a house of like control, power, jealousy, manipulation, secrets, you know. And with this square being from your 5th and 11th house, there's an issue with sex with your children and your friends, okay? One moment.